Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. I can see we are now 37 people, so thanks a lot. We will start now, just looking at the time, yes. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Lethe webinar. So it's a pleasure to have you with us today. So the webinar today, it's on public involvement, it's on PI, and the title is How can public involvement support research on dementia risk reduction? I'm really pleased to moderate this exciting webinar. My name is Cindy. I am project officer at Alzheimer Europe. So I guess you all know Alzheimer Europe, but it's an umbrella organization of 41 national Alzheimer associations from 36 EU countries. Today, we will have insight from several EU projects, Lethe, AD-RIDDLE and Pattern-Cog, and we are involved in these 3 projects. Just some housekeeping rules before to get started. So this webinar will be recorded, so please be aware of that. Please turn off the camera, mute your microphone as well. It's quite important. Today we will have 5 speakers and we will keep all the questions for the end. And at the end, we will open the floor to the audience. So feel free to use the chat box. Feel free to write question in the chat box as well. And as you can see on the screen, captions are also available if you are interested to have some captions as well. So for the agenda for today, we have 5 experts in the field. Each will be able to share their own insight from a researcher's perspective, from a member of the public perspective as well. We will also have an introduction on PI, and at the end, we will open the floor to all of you if you have any questions. So as I said, for today, we have 5 speakers, 5 panelists. We have Anna, Public Involvement Lead at Alzheimer Europe. We have Francesca, she is Executive Director of Worldwide Fingers. Then we have my colleague Soraya, Public Involvement Officer at Alzheimer Europe as well. We have then Jerome, Assistant Professor at Maastricht University. And finally, we have Miriam with us. She is a member of the Lethe Advisory Board. Welcome to you all, and we are excited for today's discussions. Without further delay, I am pleased to hand over to our first speaker for today. It's Anna. She will kick off the session with an introduction on PI, and she will explain to you what does PI mean, why, and how. Over to you, Anna.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for that nice introduction. As Cindy was explaining, today we are going to be referring to public involvement and how we are working in different projects. And then my mission today is have a bit of a conceptualization to explain what public involvement is, so all of you understand the rest of the presentations. So public involvement is typically described as about research which is carried out with and by members of the public rather than to or about or for them. What that means is that what we do is that we involve members of the public. So this means people who are affected by dementia or who have a diagnosis of dementia, and they contribute to how the research is designed, how the research is conducted, or how this is disseminated to the public. So this is what public involvement is. But before going to the next slide, I also want to highlight, because this is very often confused, that public involvement is different from research participation. So there's another way in which members of the public can be involved, and this is when a person with dementia, a carer, or a person with at risk of dementia is involved in research as a participant. So the person is following the intervention or following whatever the research requires. And this is also different from what we call public engagement, which is when we provide information to the public about existing research and we maintain them informed. These 2 things are very important, but this is not what we mean when we talk about public involvement. Sorry, I think Sorry. So why do we do public involvement? And I think in general, we can have two different, when you look at the literature, dementia is not the only condition where we do public involvement. Most of the other health conditions as well are advocating and are promoting that we involve people living with the condition in research. And when you look at the literature, we normally find two different reasons why it's important to keep people involved in research, in the way we prepare, we conduct, and we design the research. And we have one of the reasons is typically emphasized is because of ethical, social, and political concerns. This means it's a democratic principle in the way we are doing research, which is for these people, and therefore it's just only fair that they have a right to have a say in what and how publicly funded research is undertaken. On the other hand, many of the literature also refers to a pragmatic approach. So if you have people living with a condition, it's a way to make sure you have knowledge that might be otherwise be missing, and it's actually trying to highlight things that perhaps coming from the lived experience that perhaps a researcher would not have considered. So one considering why to do this, then that brings us to what is the impact. So what happens when you involve people with lived experience, people who have an interest in the area in dementia research. And that makes that perhaps your research will be more relevant and more acceptable to participants and in the future to users of whatever you are developing your research. It might also be very relevant for discussing and exploring potential ethical issues or the social implications of your project. It definitely helps researchers to anticipate, to plan, and to improve the experience of the future participants in research. So by having these discussions with members of the public, you might understand what the issues might be, where the concerns might be, what your materials, whether are they accessible, are they something that people are going to relate? And finally, it can also have a big impact in how you communicate to the participants, so being more clear, being more in an accessible manner, but also how you communicate about your research to the broader society and community. And finally, I wanted to touch as well in the how. So we talk about what it is, what is important and the impact, and now is the how. So I want to say something very important. The first thing is public involvement. It's not just, it could be in many different forms. So for us, there's not one way or one recipe of what it should be, and it has to be related to what's relevant to a particular research or project. So it can go from just involvement in a particular task, something very specific, a one-off opportunity, or to a bit kind of long kind of a continuum where more you can have a much broader involvement where you can fully involve members of the public from the very beginning of your project to the very end in many different stages. And what to do depends on many different things. It depends on the study, what is required. It depends on the skills of the researchers. It depends as well on the ability and resources. But in any case, regardless of what you do, it has to be meaningful to the project and to the people involved. And finally, into the how, very, very important. From outside Europe, we have we have two working groups of that we have set up in the last years. One is the European Working Group of People with Dementia. This is a group that we set up in 2012 and is composed of people who have a diagnosis of dementia themselves. We also have more recently a group of carers, of informal carers who are providing care to a person with dementia. My colleague Soraya will refer a bit more to this group as well and some of the work she has been conducting. And we have as well some advisory boards, as Miriam will be explaining later, that we have developed linked to some of the actual projects. He will be referring to Lethe. And we have as well a pool where we have as well a broader amount of people who wants to be involved in research. Very importantly, what is important when you develop public involvement is it has to be person-centered, so thinking about the people you have involved. People, you need to require any support that's necessary for these people. It's important that there's a very strong relationship of trust between the researchers and the people involved from the public. And this is basically what we normally define as a relationship of mutual respect and reciprocity in which it's not just as a one direction, but both people are involved and provide feedback, but also from the researchers, there's something that we can bring back as acknowledging the work they have done and coming back to the group and explaining how the feedback has been used. And finally, very importantly, it's about diversity of views. So it's not about having one single voice, but having many different voices and all of them equally respected. And just to finalize my presentation, I wanted to highlight there's many different resources out there. I have bring here a few articles that had been published in a report on the topic, and on the Alzheimer Europe website, you have all of the links to these full reports if you are interested in knowing more about the area, about the topic. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Anna. I think it was a really interesting talk, really a nice introduction on PI. So thanks. So we will keep the question to the end of the session. Feel free to ask questions in the chat box if you have any questions. I'm now pleased to welcome our second speaker. So it's Francesca. She will discuss on how public involvement benefits research in risk reduction. Over to you, Francesca.
Thank you so much, Cindy, and thank you so much for all of you who have joined for the webinar. So after the very nice presentation of Anna that basically explained what public involvement is, I would like to give you a brief overview what can be the role, and it's a very positive impact of public involvement in the research area of dementia risk reduction. And I think it's important to give a quick introduction because dementia risk reduction, it's a relatively new research area. Thanks to novel technology, diagnostic tools, we have now the possibility to measure the presence of disease in the brain that can in the future lead to cognitive problems and dementia many years before it develops. In the graph that you see here, you see that at the moment in the world, there is an estimation of over 30 million cases of Alzheimer's disease, but there is at least a double number of people that can have the brain damage typical of Alzheimer's type and mild or no symptoms. And that, I think, it gives us a huge potential opportunity for reducing the risk or delaying the onset and progression of cognitive problems in these people that are at risk. And as you can see, they represent over 20% of people 50 plus across the world. But that also brings new questions. How do we find these people? How do we engage them in measuring the risk? How do we communicate the results of this risk? And how do we engage them in deciding what to do to potentially reduce this risk? So in this research, public input has been incredibly valuable to help us explore different aspects, starting with the terminology. When we approach relatively young people or senior people that don't have cognitive problems, how do we even explain? Do they like the concept of dementia risk? Do they prefer more the concept of speaking promoting brain health? And how do we propose to them tools to measure risk that are easy to understand, both on how to approach the assessment and how to receive the results, and how to handle the communication of such risk? Because keep in mind, these are people that still work, carry on in their daily life. And there are many ethical issues that revolve around that. And then when it comes to intervention to reduce this risk, we can think of two big categories. We can give medication, but then we can also do lifestyle intervention. And in this slide, you see two main groups of risk factors that are due to environmental exposure and that have been identified by two large research teams. One is the Lancet Commission and one is the World Health Organization. The goal of these two syntheses is the same: to provide researcher, clinician, policymaker with evidence on modifiable factors that can be managed to reduce the risk or delay the onset and progression of cognitive problems. So there is a lot that actually can be done to help people before they experience cognitive problems or when they have it, to reduce the progression. But what we need to keep in mind is that because the onset of memory problems, Alzheimer's disease and dementia is late life, it's very multifactorial. It's due to the combination of genetic, life experience, so it's very heterogeneous. So there is no one silver bullet. We need a multi-domain approach. Each person has his own personal risk profile and prevention potential. So we need to do multiple intervention to really have a positive, significant impact in the brain health of a person. And there is also no one-size-fits-all solution. Each individual is unique. And so we need to have personalized intervention that, depending on where the person is in the at-risk continuum, can optimize the possibility to this person to engage in the intervention and to benefit from it. And for doing this, we have to think that we have different tools and solutions. We have lifestyle, we have medication that can also be combined. And we have digital technology that can help us in multiple ways, for instance, to deliver the intervention, to measure adherence to intervention, and to measure efficacy, and to personalize the intervention even more. We also have artificial intelligence that is a powerful tool because it has huge analytical potential. It helps us to look in a very comprehensive way to the data of individuals to better understand the unique risk profile and to predict what is the likelihood of a person to develop brain damage, to develop cognitive problems, and what is the type of intervention that fits the best of this person. And of course, in all of these areas, the public involvement is crucial. Public involvement that we have been doing in our research project has been very important to help us to think of aspects of study design. For instance, when we want to promote combination of lifestyle plus medication in people that don't have symptoms, they're very aware that medication can have a side effect. So there are certain aspects that needs to be considered, and the cities and the community help us to reflect on this. They also help us to think what are the right ways to communicate about this research, how to recruit study participants, how to produce any material that the study participants need to evaluate to make an informed decision to be in the study, to understand the benefit, the risk, and what is coming out. And also when it comes to digital tools, there is an explosion of them in the market, but there is still not so many that are age-friendly for this category of people, and they can also be good for people that start to experience cognitive problems. And when it comes to the AI, there is a lot of hype around it, but I think the citizen really express what are the main information that they need for reliability, understanding what it does, and how to interpret in a reliable way the resources. So to sum up my message, in my experience that I have had now in public involvement in research project on dementia risk reduction, the first sentence, I'm quoting one of my colleagues, the advisory board, it's our compass. They help us to understand why we do what we do. They keep us grounded. They give us a broader perspective. They help us to see different angles. And that as a consequence, we do better research. That also facilitate increasing the dissemination to the society of what we do and the results. And this is extremely important in the field of Alzheimer's and dementia, where across Europe and beyond Europe, there is still some stigma and lack of awareness. And there are probably also other benefits that I don't have the time to mention now, but overall, it is of incredible value. And that's all from my side. Thank you.
Many thanks, Francesca. I think it was a really nice presentation. I can already see there's one question in the chat. So please don't be shy, ask question. We will address all the question at the end. Let's move to our next speaker. So it's Soraya. She will present how the public was involved in a position paper on risk disclosure. The floor is yours, Soraya.
Thanks a lot, Cindy, for the nice presentation, and thanks to the rest of the speakers and also to all the attendees that I'm seeing here, all your names. So yeah, Cindy said, I'm going to give you an example of what we did for one of our projects, Pattern-Cog. And well, to explain a little bit of this project, this was about developing an artificial intelligence tool to predict future cognitive decline in people that don't have any kind of problems or symptoms. So basically, they were moving from the MCI a little bit earlier, so to people, to cognitively healthy people, and they were trying to tell these people if they were at risk or not. And this work that I'm going to present to you right now was done thanks to these wonderful people, this wonderful group that is the European Dementia Cares Working Group from Alzheimer Europe. All of them who are providing care to some of their family members or partners, and some of them are also here. And just to give you more details about the Alzheimer Europe position on risk disclosure, the problem that we are addressing, we all know about that. So we are talking about neurodegenerative diseases. We can say Alzheimer's disease or any other kind of dementia. All of them, they have multifactorial origin and complex prognosis, so we are not really sure how they will develop in each individual. There is no cure, or there are cures, but maybe not available for everyone. And then the current symptomatic therapies that we have right now are not really effective in everyone. And yeah, there has been like so much research and people saying, well, maybe it's because we are addressing the diseases too late, and we are not taking into account that lifestyle and environment, as Francesca was saying, are also important to the development of these diseases. So let's move a little bit earlier, and that was the solution. So let's go towards people, cognitively healthy people, and also people in the early stages of the Alzheimer's disease. And in this case, it would really benefit them because we would be able to develop like pharmacological treatments, and they would be able to benefit more from them, of course. But there's also a problem, because if we need to develop new pharmacological treatments, we need to identify these people. So we need people without cognitive problems, and we also need people in the early stage of the diseases. So there's the problem of how do we identify them, and also the problem of if we are talking to someone who is cognitively healthy and this person is at risk of developing Alzheimer's disease in the future, how are we going to tell them? So that was the problem that we found also in the Pattern-Cog project because of this tool, and that was the reason why we decided to write also this position paper on risk disclosure, because there are more and more research projects that are about this. But there's something important here to consider, regardless of if we are disclosing risk to develop future cognitive impairment to someone that is cognitively healthy, or we are talking about the possibility of progressing to the Alzheimer's disease, to the dementia stage of the Alzheimer's disease in people that already have a diagnosis of MCI due to Alzheimer's disease. These are completely different things. So one group of people, they already have the diagnosis, whereas cognitively healthy people, they are just at risk. So these are two different group of people, but in both cases, disclosure of risk should be honest, should be done in a compassionate way, and an honest conversation between the clinician and the person who is receiving this information. So that was the thing that we wanted to make it clear with the position paper, and this was developed for the clinical setting and also for intervention and observational studies. And I'm going to give you like some more details about what we developed. So we had general recommendations. So when we are disclosing risk for cognitive impairment to cognitively healthy people, or risk for Alzheimer's disease dementia to people with MCI due to Alzheimer's disease, then we have specific recommendations when disclosing risk for cognitive impairment to cognitively healthy people. And we have specific recommendations for those that already have the disease, but really in the early stage. And some of the examples that I wanted you to read today, but of course the position is available in our website, so you can have a look at that. The general recommendations is always, when we are making research in this topic, it's really important that we acknowledge the concerns and the fears that research participants may have about that. And we always have to provide the right amount of information about what we are doing in the research project and adapt also everything to the person's needs. Of course, it's really important to be transparent about what we have available right now. So no matter if it's a cure or medicine or preventive strategies, it's important to be clear to the person which is the capacity of these interventions for beneficial change and also the limitations that they have. And also it's important not only to provide information about risk, so giving someone a risk prediction, but also give these people information that they can act on. So once you receive the risk, okay, so now what can I do, to reduce my risk or to delay the progression of the disease that I have, for example. There are also specific recommendations that we develop for both groups. It's very important also when we are talking about risk, because we know that there are different kinds of risk, that we explain that and we clarify that to the person that we are disclosing the risk to. So whether we are talking about genetics or we are talking about lifestyle in general, it's very important to say about that. Also, it's very, very important that when we are talking to someone about risk, that we always respect that person's decision about wanting or deciding, okay, I don't want to know about my risk prediction. It's very important to respect that. Also, and I think that's also very important for us as an organization, that when we have cognitively healthy people and we predict, and there are like some research projects where researchers or clinicians predict risk to cognitively healthy people, that these people are still cognitively healthy people at risk and not people in the preclinical stage of Alzheimer's disease. And of course, and I think that some of my colleagues mentioned that receiving a risk prediction is also has also an impact on of my job, and there are like so many psychological and social consequences that we have to consider, and we also have to tell the person. And well, in any case, and just to finish with my presentation, regardless of all these recommendations that we develop, I think it's really, really important that between clinicians, researchers, and their patients, there is an honest conversation, and they take the time to disclose the risk in a careful manner, also confident and always honest way. And of course, thanks a lot. And if you have any questions, please feel free or drop me an email. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks a lot, Soraya, for this really nice presentation. Our next speaker is Jérôme. He will share insight from the Lethe project and why it's important to join forces with the public. Over to you, Jérôme.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was still muted. Cindy, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone. Absolute honor to be here today. Tell a bit about my research and the role of public involvement. I'm here on behalf of the Lethe project, and Lethe actually refers to a river. And in ancient Greece, it was believed that if you drank water from that Lethe river, you would experience symptoms of forgetfulness. So you can imagine that for a very long time, that Greek myth, it served as an explanation for some of the symptoms of cognitive decline and dementia. Well, that perspective has changed a bit, and we know that dementia is caused by a very complex interplay of genetic predisposition, but also certain modifiable factors, such as physical inactivity and a healthy diet. So what we do in Lethe is we develop a multi-domain lifestyle intervention to help people mitigate those risk factors. And these risk factors have everything to do with behavior, because physical activity and a healthy diet is about behavior. And this is why in Lethe we have a behavior change work package. And in that behavior change work package, we use a participatory and iterative approach to identify relevant determinants of behavior. And when I talk about these determinants of behavior, I'm not talking about sex or genes. And yes, it's true, sex and genes, they determine behavior, but it is not something that you can influence or change in the scope of a multi-domain lifestyle intervention. So when I talk about determinants of behavior, I actually refer to motivational aspects that either make it difficult for people to change behavior or enable behavior change. And what we do in Lethe is we try to identify the most relevant determinants, because if you know which are the most relevant, you can strategically organize your intervention around that knowledge and embed certain behavior change methods to help people live a cognitively healthy lifestyle. And this is, per definition, not something that you can do behind your desk. You need to do this in very close triangulation, of course, with literature and theory, but more importantly, also to important stakeholders. So in Lethe, I worked very closely with the clinical team who works with multi-domain lifestyle interventions that help people mitigate the risk for cognitive decline in practice. In Lethe, we also I work very closely with very creative technologists that you've spoken in the previous webinars, but more importantly, also with people from the public. And in Lethe, we have an advisory board that compromises people from the population who basically consult us in every step of the research. So from beginning to end, and they've also played a crucial role in shaping my research and translating my research to intervention purposes. So what I'm going to do in this small pitch is also show you a bit more about my research and how that led to the development of a smartphone app that we use in Lethe. So we started very bottom up with engaging people from the public in an interview study to get more insight into their perspective. And in that interview study, we discussed lifestyle, room for improvement in lifestyle, and openness and willingness to change. And as you can see, we recruited quite open without mentioning the word dementia. So something that we also did in this study is the participants weren't only participants, but some of the participants were actually invited to help us with the interpretation of the qualitative findings from those interviews and to support us with drawing conclusions. And if we have a sneak peek at the results, we can see that dementia risk reduction is easier said than done. Many people of the public feel it is something that occurs decades into the future, and it's linked to many different risk factors, which makes it very difficult to estimate the effect of small changes. Overall, people in our study were very positive about a healthy lifestyle, but were more reluctant and hesitant to change lifestyle behaviors that have room for improvement. They also thought about lifestyle change in terms of all or nothing. Radical change was observed as one of the key to success. But if that had failed in the past, many of the people from the public were actually had self-doubts whether or not they can initiate new attempts to change and sustain certain lifestyle behavior changes. Of course, we also wanted to verify these findings in a larger sample, and this is why we spread a questionnaire also in the Dutch public that was completed by over 4,000 people. And we didn't just made up the questions on this questionnaire. We did this, of course, based on literature, but we also consulted with experts and people from a Dutch working group that comprises of people who experience financial scarcity. So they have difficulties with making ends meet. And we did this because dementia risk is also linked to socioeconomic position. And we wanted to make sure our questionnaire was appropriate for everyone. And the results learned us that many have room for improvement in lifestyle behavior. Over 90% could change one behavior, and over 65% could change two or more. And that many were actually unaware of their personal room for improvement in lifestyle behavior and experienced limited control over initiating that change. So how did this lead to something that we use in our multi-domain intervention? Well, this is the dashboard of the app, the smartphone app that the participants use during the lifestyle intervention. And you can immediately see some behavior change methods at work. The participants, they set goals together with a clinician, small, achievable goals. They select certain habits that they embed in the daily routine. They plan what they are going to do and they monitor how they do it through a weekly score. And we also use a Fitbit in the study, which allows us also to monitor what the participants do. And based on that, send them motivational notifications to support them with changing their lifestyle behaviors or trying out a new habit or engaging their social network in lifestyle change. And the advisory board was very instrumental in determining this approach. So it was very helpful to discuss also the translation of my research to this practical application with people from the public. But it is more than that. because I think interaction with people from the public and the advisory board, it also generates new research ideas. Also in Europe, in November 23, they hosted a physical meeting with advisory board members, and they brainstormed about digital tools, also to promote social activities, because social isolation is recently recognized as a key risk factor. And they formulated key takeaways for the future, and that helped us to write a position paper as a blueprint for the future. And we currently follow up also on and try to practice what we preach. We are doing interviews with older adults about social participation. And we try to involve there a diverse sample of people with cultural and socioeconomic backgrounds. And we consulted again with a Dutch working group here on financial scarcity, who advised on the recruitment and the design of the study, which was for me very helpful. And one of their key takeaways was actually that you can interview people, but that maybe you should pause and think about who you include and then recruit people you miss. So this is what we're currently doing. And we miss, for example, people from Turkey, but also people with an Eastern European background, while they are quite represented in the Dutch population. So we're taking a step back and trying to recruit now people from missing groups, which was for me very helpful. I see Cindy on my screen, which means I have to wrap up. But I'm, of course, if you want to stay tuned about what we do, follow us on social media. We're quite active. And I'm, of course, more than happy to address any questions you have in the panel discussion. Cindy, I'll give the word back to you now.
Thanks a lot for sharing your thoughts. I think it was a really nice presentation. And you mentioned the Lethe Advisory Board. So I'm really pleased to welcome our last speaker. So it's Miriam. She is a member of the Lethe Advisory Board, and she's here with us today to share her views on how her views really on being part of the Lethe Advisory Board. So Miriam, it's up to you. You can move the slides. You know it's at the bottom left, but if you have any issues, just tell us and we will move the slides on your behalf. Up to you, Miriam.
Good morning to all of you, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak at this webinar. I am a member of the advisory board of the Lethe project, and I'm also involved in another ongoing project, actually, that is AD-RIDDLE and Pattern-Cog. But today I'm here to share insights from my experience with the Lethe study, which is now reaching its conclusion. In the Lethe study, applications were designed to assist and most importantly stimulate older adults like me with mild cognitive impairment or early symptom of dementia. This application encourages individuals to adopt a lifestyle that better accommodates their condition, ultimately helping to delay the progression of disease. And this was well said by Francesca and Jerome just now. These initiatives are of critical importance in today's world as life expectancy continues to rise. Is it therefore essential to explore strategies for preventing or slowing brain aging? So, within this context, what role did we play in the Lethe project? What is its significance? And how did we contribute to a research project like Lethe? Today, I'm here as a witness of this experience, and I hope to represent the perspective of the other 6 members of the advisory board as well. In my talk, I will summarize the work that we have undertaken over these years and share my personal reflection on what it has been like to be part of such an important project. So there we are. This is a screenshot, a picture of one of our Zoom meeting. We met generally on Zoom, but this was not an obstacle, actually. And I'm quoting here what Anna said, Anna Diaz said in Geneva conference. She said that the public involvement is about involving members of the public in dementia research as advisors, working alongside researchers and creating a partnership between them whereby all contributed collaborating various degrees toward the research, design, process, or output. And this is what I thought, what we did, and I hope successfully. I tried to make a timeline of our meetings, and this just to show that actually there were many meetings, and they were very interesting, and we could share a lot of ideas, and we could see different perspective. The same issues were seen from us in a different way, and we can share our opinion, we can give our advice. And so, as you might see, there was a long way that brought us in September 24 at the end of this this important and nice project, and we were all enthusiastic, I must say. And I'm looking forward actually to know what are the results in the next year, this year now. I'm concentrating more in a couple of aspects. Actually, there are so many things to say, as you see, but we were different people, 7 from different countries, Italy, France, Finland, and Austria. And of course, we were different, and we had different views. Francesca said that it was necessary sometimes to adopt a multidimensional approach. So one example, for instance, could be the recruitment, because when we spoke about the recruitment and the way how people could be invited to participate into research, then actually it came so that we were living in different places, so we need to adopt different strategies, perhaps. And as for Italy, there was the idea was to advertise the project to local news and newspaper, and also to schedule informative meetings with local cultural association and senior activity center for adult and elderly for presenting the Lethe project. I must thank you, Anna Giulia, for having given me this slide. And actually, this was different from Austria, from Finland, for instance, as I remember, because they prefer perhaps much more to adopt a social way of recruitment, so like the use of Facebook or the other devices that in Italy actually we thought were not so appropriate. So now, actually, I have here a slide where it can be shown where I'm involved. Primarily, it was such an honor to be invited to test these digital devices, the special devices, that is the Temi robot and the audio glasses. And also, we all had the possibility to test, which was very important actually, to test the smartphone. But to have the experience to see how Temi could help to help older people in being assistant in what they should do during the day in order to keep the style of life and to adopt what we call the tiny habits was very, very important, and it was really exciting for me to have for a few days this fantastic robot. I had a bit more difficulty with the glasses, I must say, and this because I wear glasses, so I had to wear both, and it was a bit discomfortable, to be honest. I have to conclude now by saying that we were always very motivated and very interested in participating into the project. And I can say that it has been possible to work with a mixed group of people from different countries. There was no problem at all. There was respectful view. The view were seen, and we respect each other, and we could have a very nice way of communicating. It was stimulating, as I said already, to listen to other people's opinions and different points of view. And from the point of view of the collaboration with the research, so how the research helped us actually in helping them, I might say, this was really essential that we were satisfied in our request to be informed about the development of the study. And for us, it was a very important, a crucial point. We wanted and asked always feedbacks and also information to be able to understand better what brain, the functioning of the brain, and how life changes if we adopt a different style. So we learned quite a lot as well. And we received the feedback that we were asking for, and on why our suggestions were used. So we felt that we were valued, and that our contribution was, and this was important somehow, and this was very gratifying. But I want to finish with a question mark. So did the advisory board members support the Lethe study? Well, I think that we were supported a lot and we learned a lot. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks a lot, Miriam. It was lovely. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for showing your views as well. So thanks. I would like to thank again all our fantastic speakers. Now I would like to open the floor to the panel discussion. We still have 10 minutes, so we have time to address questions from the audience. I invite all the speakers to turn on the camera, and I think it's already done. So well done to all of you. I can already see 2 questions in the chat. Please be active. Please write question in the chat box. Any question you may have to our panelists. But before to have a look on the 2 questions, I just want to have a look again on the last slide from Miriam, because she asked a question: did the advisory board members support the Lethe study? She said yes. She replied yes. But I think it could be nice to ask our researchers directly involved in the Lethe project, Francesca and Jerome, what are your views? And if you can reply to Miriam's question.
Can I go, Francesca, or
Yes.
you want to? Yeah, from my perspective, it has been very helpful. Because as a researcher, you struggle with a lot of questions and you need to make a lot of decisions, which can be difficult, and either decision has like downsides attached to it. And then the engagement with people from the public can really help you in making the right decision. Very often you know at the end whether or not it was the right decision, but it can strengthen you in making informed decisions that also match with the perspectives of people who this is about. And I think Miriam gave a perfect example about the recruitment, for example. How should we recruit people for a multi-domain lifestyle intervention that's very context dependent. And different approaches were applied in Italy than were applied in Finland or Sweden. I think, Francesca, you know much more about this, but yeah, in my opinion, it was extremely helpful to allow people from the public engage in that decisional process.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you, Jeroen, and I think I can make countless examples on how the advisory board helped us for the Lethe study. So a big chapter of the Lethe project, which is not the only part, but the big chapter is this feasibility trial, where we involve people in a digitally supported lifestyle-based intervention. And the advisory board check and help us to finalize, optimize the material that we use to recruit people. They even help us to optimize what is called the participant-informed consent. So when a study participant is engaging in a study, they need to be explained clearly what is coming from them, what happened to their data, what are the risks and the benefit of participating. And to do this for this new type of study, it was really helpful to have the perspective. The advisory board also helped us, for instance, to check the instructions that we were providing. And Miriam went even that far that she tested the robot for us to tell us, okay, maybe you want to make sure that this aspect is taken care of. I think, and this maybe can be an opportunity to answer one of the questions that is on the audience that say, why do you think is the greatest benefit of user involvement in research? And why do you think, what are the challenges inherent in the research project? I think there are multiple benefits. You see your research project as a researcher from angles that you would not think. And this forces you to reassess some of aspects, and to reassessing always comes improvement. That's what it is. And why I think researchers sometimes struggle, I can think of two main factors. First of all, there is no proper understanding. It was for me something completely new that we started few years ago, public involvement. So until I did not understood what it really was, it was difficult for me. And now I cannot think of doing a project without an advisory board. And in this comes the second point. You need to have the right partner. Without Alzheimer's Europe, any public involvement that we do in this field would not be possible. They have been the one enabling us researchers in the first place to understand how to approach what it was and to create the environment to really do a meaningful play. So I think like my main two key points is, as a researcher, try to understand what it really means and find the right partners, because sometimes in our academic institution, we're not equipped to do that. So you need a partner like Alzheimer's Europe that has the right knowledge, expertise, and experience to actually do this. That's all from my side.
Thanks, Francesca. Thanks, Jerome. I hope, Miriam, you had a good reply to your question. I had a look on the chat box. There is another question from Trevor, more about young people. I don't know if you had the chance to read the question, but it's young people live in the moment and for the moment. So unless they have been touched by dementia, say in their family, immediate family, isn't it going to be almost impossible to involve them in research? I don't know if someone wants to reply, or I don't want to put anyone on the spotlight. I know that Soraya was working also with young researchers, young people. So I don't know if you want to take on this question.
I'm not really sure. No, well, I mean, I completely agree with Trevor. I think he's right, but I think that applies to everyone. I mean, if you are not touched by anything but by something in particular, it's difficult to understand that that condition may touch you at some point. No, so I think that applies to every disease, not only to neurodegenerative diseases. But I think, at least what I see, for example, with young people right now, if I compare with my generation, so when I was 20 years old, that they are really worried about taking care of themselves, in every sense. They are more worried about mental health issues, about these kind of things that maybe when I was younger, it was not, it was also a reality, but people were not really concerned about that. there were not so many campaigns about taking care of, your mental health. So I think that maybe in the future, more people will be interested in brain health because that will come, and there will be more campaigns, and exactly the same as it happened with public involvement. I think that probably like 10 years ago or 20 years ago, it was not something that common. As Francesca was saying, for her, it was not something necessary like some years ago, and now she cannot understand a research project without public involvement and without an advisory board. So maybe that will happen as well with young people and with brain health. I think it's a matter of going there and ask them how they see this topic and how can we improve, the things that we do, and also to involve them. So yeah, but yeah, I completely agree with you, Trevor. That is difficult.
And Cindy, if I can add to, I think
Yes.
Soraya explained really, really well, but just to add that this is a very good reflection, Trevor, not just in young people, but in any population that we involved. Is not the same if you are working with people who are cognitively healthy, people who have dementia, young people, or as Jeroen was saying, you want to involve people from some minority groups or lower socioeconomic status. So you need to be very aware of that and adapt your method. You cannot use a blanket approach to say, I'm going to do the same no matter who are involving. So I think the idea of you need to personalize and really accommodate to the needs, and that was a bit of the principles I was touching on. It's important that you something that it's really relevant for the population that you are wanting to involve. And I think as Soraya was doing in her work, trying to see what works for these people, what kind of language, what kind of medium is going to be useful for them. Or as Jeroen was saying, trying to get to reach to specific groups, then it's not just the same as if I was just involving the general population. So I think it's a fantastic reflection, Trevor, and I would apply this to any other group.
I completely agree. Thanks. Francesca, do you want to add something?
Yeah,
I saw that you're unmuted.
I think I fully agree with what Soraya and Anna said, and it's true. It's difficult to make the younger generation to understand that the brain or any other part of our body, it's our capital. So to invest in maintaining it and creating even a bigger capital, like you would do with a piggy bank, is very important. I can see that in different situations, there are good signs that this is happening. If anything, it's because unfortunately, some disorders are becoming more common in younger people. Like if you think of diabetes or obesity, they are epidemic, they are spreading among the younger. So there is more and more interest in making them in the first place informed that certain situations, certain lifestyle are not necessarily the best choice, and empower them, show what they can do to decide and to engage themselves. And I mean, I have to say, even in the dementia research, some of the intervention that we do are done bringing together the older people with children, because they can work together towards a better lifestyle, that then it's not more an individual decision, but becomes a family decision. And so we need to start with these that are a little bit low-hanging fruit, but of course we need the society to support this in the first place. Otherwise, if we expect all the individual to do everything by themselves, it's not going to be really sustainable in the long term.
Thanks. I'm just looking at the time. We are now approaching the end of our webinar. But before to close the webinar, I would like to give the floor to Miriam, because I really want to give the floor and to finish with Miriam. Miriam, is there anything else that you want to share, to add before to close the webinar?
Wait a minute. I'm on with my, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I have to say that I forgot to give my acknowledgement to all of you. I'm very sorry, but I have to say thank you very much, first of all, to our Virgilio. Let me call her Virgilio. Anna, you are all our Virgilio. So thank you very much on behalf of every of us. And also I want to express my gratitude and my great thanks to Anna Giulia and Mattia Pirani, because in this group, Italian group, we were having a really great time together, believe me, and this was great. So all that said, thank you to Francesca about the point of involving young people. This is, I think, is a very important issue, and also it's important that our society is aware. But now we are going into a lonely world, I'm afraid. And this is a very important issue, and I don't know if we can succeed in having older and young people together, very young, so that it could be possible to have a mutual relation and then mutual aid, you know, in such a respect. So let's hope for the future.
Thanks, Miriam. We are now running out of time, so it's time to close this webinar. I would like to thank all our 5 excellent speakers and all of you for attending today's webinar. The recording will be available shortly on the Lethe website, so have a look in a couple of weeks, I would say. Have a wonderful day, and we look forward to seeing you again very soon. Thanks and goodbye.
Thank you.